There we go. How about now? How about now? Look at that. Take a week off and things fall apart. Welcome into the Paul Kuharsky podcast. I'm Paul Kuharsky at paulkuharsky.com, brought to you by VIP Play, part of the 440 Sports Network. Happy to be with you. Sorry for a little malfunction there at the beginning. Take a week off and look what happens. 2 practices in the books for the Titans at training camp. Tomorrow morning, Nissan Stadium. I'm sure I'll see many of you there. 2 more years to go in this building. Heat on the sidelines tomorrow. And then indoor practice coming up in 2027. No more time off for me, says Sam. I don't know what that was about. But we're at the bottom of it. And yes, I will be taking that time off each and every year. Good to be with you. Some things to review out of these 2 practices. We cannot make too much of them. We cannot make too much of any one thing. I know people will want to start with Cam Ward, and we should start with Cam Ward. No big jump into the first 2 days, which is no big deal. But from minicamp, from the OTAs and from minicamp into the first 2 days, you weren't like, whoa, a lot going on there. Just the way Sam says here, seems like Barton was a good signing. Well, I mean, he's had 3 picks of, I think, all of Cam Ward. He should have had a second pick of Cam Ward the other day. But I think it's early to say, whoa, look at Barton. I think he's going to be a better player than Kenneth Murray. He's a more instinctive player than Kenneth Murray. But Cam Ward plays the middle of the field a lot. And I think that Barton has kind of picked up on maybe a Cam Ward cue or 2. And so I don't know that it will, does it translate to Denver, to the Rams? We'll see. Hopefully he's an upgrade and a good player. He's going to be covering to a degree, or tempted to overextend, I suspect, to help James Williams, who right now is next to him, or Cedric Gray, or whoever winds up next to him. So we will see what happens there. Ward, I watched his timing very carefully on the first day, intending to be the one guy who wrote about his timing. Then in some public settings, I got some good answers about timing, and a couple other people wound up writing about his timing. It looked pretty good on the first day, footwork and timing. Maybe 2 or 3 times his footwork wasn't good. But then on the second day, I had to tweet, a day after I wrote about Cam Ward and the offense's timing, it wasn't very good. Titans offense on the second day did not time things up very well. It was a disappointing effort. The defense definitely won. First day, there was a lot of time. I urge you to go back and read that piece, a lot of insight into how the Titans see timing as the central element of their offense. Some stuff from Brandon Allen about how it's more so than it was when he was in San Francisco, or his other stop, which I'm forgetting, but that in Cincinnati with Taylor and Callahan, and now here he sees it as an even bigger piece. But there was a lot of talk, and look, Derek Mason, respect him. Obviously had an excellent NFL career. It was a long, long time ago. And the first day of camp for Derek Mason, when he was drafted in 1997 and all those years after that, much different than the first day of camp circa 2025, my 30th camp, by the way. It's been set up that this is a ramp up period, and you don't just drop in and go the way you might have in 1997. There are no pads. You practice 4 times before you get into pads. They don't call long routes for the wide receivers intentionally because they don't want guys to stretch out and pull a hamstring or a calf or a groin. You're more prone to suffer a soft tissue injury, running deep stuff in the early days, The research has shown. So virtually every team is scaling that back. And these are kind of entryway practices, and the Titans aren't really going to go full till Tuesday or Wednesday next week. And I think, a big hit, and they're not in pads, or a big play, which usually comes deep in the passing game, tends to give you the kind of energy that people were saying wasn't there. The first day, by Cam Ward's assessment and most people's assessment, was meh. Well, what does a meh day mean? It means it was a wash, right? And now, if the defense has a big day like it did the second day, we all say, well, the offense sucked. Or if the offense has a big day, then everybody says, well, the defense sucked. What's going on? If there's a meh day, a mid day is what he said. If there's a mid day, that kind of means everybody canceled each other out and the offense and defense were pretty even, which actually is not a bad thing all the time. So I would keep that in mind. No pads, no long routes, no red zone, no third down, which are also periods that give juice and which will become omnipresent in short order in the play script, but are not yet. And here's Brian Callahan kind of talking about the shape of the early practices and how things will formulate, including for those of you who are going to be at practice tomorrow.
Today, the first 2 days are base down days here. We'll get into third downs tomorrow. So this afternoon's walkthrough is pretty heavy third down. Tomorrow's practice is third downs. Saturday is going to be red zone. So we jump into them pretty quickly. And then for the rest of the time in training camp, there's probably either a third down or a red zone period in just about every practice. Critical. I mean, those are the two probably most critical areas in offensive success. And the third down pressure packages, the protection part of it, understanding his answers, understanding how to protect himself are really critical. He's done a really nice job, but it's just one of those things you just need constant exposure to, which is great that we're playing against two teams that, we get Tampa, who tends to pressure a bunch. We got Denard, who pressures a bunch. So we're going to get plenty of looks and challenges for him to continue to improve.
So a little bit on that. How does Sweat look physically? Apparently he's down. I don't see it. I don't look at Sweat and go, whoa, he looks different. You look at Latham and you can tell that he looks different. Here's Jordan asking about the where is it? The conversation about last great homegrown wide receiver was Drew Bennett and D Mace when talking about the AJ. Maybe I missed something there. AJ Brown was the last great homegrown receiver. Before that, it had been quite a while. Burke, Traylon Burks, clearly this was going around the internet, this clip that the team put out of him jumping to catch a ball that didn't need to be jumped. There didn't need to be a jump to catch it. I was told by a scout very early in my career, guys jumping to catch balls that they don't need to jump to catch is a sign of lack of confidence in their hands. And I'm not surprised that Burks has a lack of confidence in his hands. On the same clip, Mike Brown was in position to blow him up, which means, I don't know, you're not making that throw in a real game, or you shouldn't be. I don't know if that means you shouldn't be making it in practice. But that's probably Burks is jumping there, probably to protect himself a little, or defend himself a little. I don't know if that's the right way to defend yourself, but I think he's obviously going to be a little bit gun shy when he's put in a position to get blown up. And he was definitely put in position to get blown up. A guy who jumped to catch balls constantly, to catch balls that didn't need him to jump to catch, was Chris Sanders. And that was a hands thing for sure for Chris Sanders as well. I'll scroll back here and start to catch up to some of what you're asking. Mr. First Down, I'm well, thanks. Getting past all the audio problems for sure. Sorry. 2 practices and a day off. What a joke the NFLPA is, Tall Texan says. I mean, these are the kind of things the NFLPA can win. And this isn't a bad one. Listen, life has changed. And, 2 a days out of the gate with limited water would not necessarily 6 weeks of that with 8 preseason games. It wasn't an ingenious idea. And I don't think it was, I don't think it'd be smart to go back to that either. Who is the back end of the roster guy who will get too much hype? Happens every year. It could be, I mean, it's usually a skill position player, right? And so it could well be the receiver that they signed today, Matt Landers, at the expense of Dowell. I mean, this guy's RAS coming out of Arkansas in 2023 was 9.85. He's 6'4", 200 pounds, great vertical, great broad, 4'3", 740. He looks the part. The only thing he wasn't great at was the shuttle. You could look at his RAS. I put that out on my Twitter. They cut him. They signed him and waived Colton Dowell, who was a feel-good story, but isn't this regime's 7th round pick? So I'm not surprised that they would move on from him. I think Khalil Mullins Mullings will get a lot of attention. He'll play in the fourth quarter a lot and do well. And I think he could be a good player for this team. I hope he is a good player for this team, a good situational player for this team. But there'll be somebody. Restrepo, if he gets the catches I expect he'll get, will be huge. Fanboys Unleashed. Can't wait to get pictures with me. I don't know, what color will the boa be? It has to match up with what I'm wearing. Cue up the camp overreactions and the love story between the 8th string wide receiver and the fan base. Happens every time, Russell, for sure. Any other team use such big-bodied edges? Well, I don't know if any other team has so little pass rush. So that's great. They've got these big-bodied edges now. And they should be able to stop the run. That's for sure. And they better stop the run and get teams in 3rd and long. How is this happening? Man, there I am. Doubled up. All right. Chaos upon my return. I have some bad screens open with Colbert sitting there waiting to start talking all of a sudden. I don't understand. Yeah, overreaction season. I try always, Russell, to tamp it down. Latham physically looks really good. I watched more. Sam is asking. I watched more yesterday. I'm writing a more story in the next couple days. I thought he looked. Can't remember the phrase I wrote down, but authoritative in a way. Certainly that NPF and Dillard and Daly did not look, but authoritative in a non-camp practice is being between your man and the quarterback. He was between his man and the quarterback a lot, but there were edge guys flying around some, and we'll get to that. Let's get back to those big edges. Like, don't let them sucker you into thinking, oh my God, the Titans are going big edges. The Titans are going big edges because the bendy, smaller edge who burns the edge and gets to the quarterback in a hurry was not available to them. If you think that, I understand them embracing this bigger edge thing, but if they could have had a guy shaped like Harold Landry who is better than Harold Landry and gets to the quarterback very quickly, very frequently, they would take that guy. If Arden Key was significantly better at getting to the quarterback on a regular basis, he would no doubt be a guy who was getting the majority of the snaps at one of the edge positions. It's convenient that these big guys are available, that Draymond Jones is available, that when Lorenzo Carter retires, there's Ward available for them. Because people aren't looking for gigantic, not gigantic, but very big edge guys who are stuff the run guys first and foremost, who don't rush the passer well. The premium's on the rushing the passer well. And they're talking, quite frankly, about a collective rushing the passer. Well, how many times have we heard Wilson and Tracy Rocker talking about if you get a one-on-one, you've got to beat your man up front. Well, that's a individual effort of that one guy beating his man and getting to the quarterback. But now they're not talking as much about that. It's early still, and they will talk about that. They're talking more about a collective victory of getting to the quarterback. So I'm not saying they're not going to talk about it anymore, but thematically, we heard frequently about when you're one-on-one to get to the quarterback when you're matched up that way. And now already an early theme of this camp is kind of there's going to be a collective collapsing of the pocket. Well, you need to win collectively when you don't have individual studs who can win. And the Titans have no individual studs who can win on the outside. Here then is Brian Callahan kind of getting at that.
We got to get the quarterback on the ground. I think, like I said before, we had quite a high number of missed sacks. We got the quarterback in our grasp, but we're right in position to make it, and we don't get him on the ground. So we got to do that better. I think how we're going to rush this year, how we're going to deploy the people to rush, I think is going to be maybe a little bit different from maybe years past, but we're going to find a way to collectively rush better and get the quarterback on the ground. There's a lot of things that go into that. The balancing of the rush, the technique and how you rush. And I think one of the things for the size that you see that we've added, there's a crushing of the pocket as opposed to maybe more pure pass rush moves and things like that. We're trying to collapse the pocket on the quarterback. So those are things that we're doing. That's kind of why we have the style of players we have. And it hopefully this translates into some more quarterback sacks and not just pressure.
Is that why they have the style of players they have? I mean, is that exclusively why they have the style of players they have? I think they have the style of players they have because that's what's left. I think if they could have got a bendy, burns his guy off the edge, they would have taken him, right? If they could have had Cam Ward and Abdul Carter's bigger. He's not tiny, but they would have taken both, right? They don't have Abdul Carter because they didn't have access to Abdul Carter, not because they wanted bigger guys. Wrong? Curious what your guys' take is on that. I'm going to retweet. I encourage you to retweet. Also, please, if you're watching here on Twitter, retweet. If you're watching on YouTube now or later, be sure to like, subscribe, give the thumbs up. If you're listening later on Apple, on Spotify, on iHeart, like, rate, subscribe. We appreciate all of that. So thank you as always. Let me get back into your questions here. And Femi, anybody Femi reminds me of early, Sam is saying, nobody that Femi reminds me of off the top of my head, but I will say, I said that Cam didn't look like he'd made, some big jump in 6 weeks away, which is fine. It's hard to, that's a hard magic to make happen. Femi does look like he's made a jump in 6 weeks away. In the first 2 practices, Femi has looked very good. He's playing some coverage in 7-on-7. I'm not the first person to say that. I heard Nick Suss say it early. So if there's trouble to be had for that, I'm only echoing somebody who said it first. But he has been showing up with burst through the edge. I will say a very straight line-ish pass rush, and he looks good. So I think you can be excited about Femi Oladejo right now. And I've seen Jones there and I've seen Key there. So early signs of the pass rush, good, but no pads, limitations on what the offensive lineman can do. Edges should be winning at this stage, I think. So don't get too excited. Io Manor looks good. He's not the best guy on the footwork ladder, but I think he can be encouraging. Have I read up on the Raiders Wilkinson stuff? Yes. It's amazing how quickly that's gone bad. It'll be interesting to see how the grievance goes. I can't imagine that they're going to get off the hook for all of his guarantee. And teams and players really need to be in sync about rehab and about injuries. And it doesn't serve anybody, either side, well for them not to be in sync that way. Banksy, I mean, how is pass rush not still a concern? It was a concern last season. They've added minus Landry, who, was starting to fade, certainly not worth $17 million. A guy who tended to get close and not finish, which is the story of a lot of Titans pass rushers. I hadn't spent a first rounder on it in forever. They still haven't. Oladejo, looks good in the last couple days. And I just talked about it a little bit, but that crew of people is not very good. Ed Henry, hello, my friend. Listening to Borgonzi and Brinker, he can't help but think, who's the voice in the room that can push back and say it's not a developmental issue, it's the players you drafted if prospects don't pan out? Well, that's a reasonable question. If prospects don't pan out, generally this is the give and take, what you're hinting at. If the prospects don't pan out, are the coaches good enough to say, hey, this guy wasn't developable? And so if Brinker and Borgonzi and the scouts provide players who were not good enough, and you say it's not a development issue, it's a talent issue, you didn't provide us sufficient talent. Yeah, right now I'd say things are tilted in favor of the personnel people, saying you guys didn't develop them. It's not leveled to the point where Callahan and his people have the clout to say these guys couldn't be developed. They weren't good enough to be developed. And you'd like that to be even. But, are Brinker and Borgonzi, I don't think it's going to be all the way one or all the way the other. All of these guys were good enough to be developed and you didn't develop any of them, or none of these guys were good enough to be developed and you didn't develop any of them. You would think there are some that are going to be good enough to be developed. Did you develop them? And some that weren't good enough to be developed, and we understand that. Some sort of balance there, and you hope that they're all fair. Personnel people judging the coaches and coaches judging the talent they were given. If they're operating in good faith with each other and things go reasonably well enough that there won't too quickly be finger pointing about who was given what and what they did with it. You hope that's the way it goes. It's a good thought. I think maybe we're a little ahead of ourselves on that. Anybody surprised me with their physical look after the offseason. No, Simmons lost a lot of weight and was curious if anyone else stood out. Well, Latham is the symbol. There's been a lot of talk about body composition, but I've not talked to a great degree of guys to have a chance to notice it. And then we're not in the locker room at this stage. We're talking to guys coming off the field in various states of dress. Most of them have pulled off their jerseys, but they might be in an undershirt. Some guys might have their shirts off and stuff. So it's not always easy to tell, particularly upon talking to them the first time. No, Christian Wilkins, Wes, is not worth a flyer if he claims he's healthy. He'd have to pass a physical, but he is a little bit redundant with Simmons, right? So he's going to find a better situation than that. But it would seem that he's got to sort out the injury stuff and pass somebody's physical. Jabari wants to jinx the Titans. I don't believe in jinxes, but a lot of you won't like this. Is this the healthiest Titans camp in a while? Snead and Cush are the only two injured. It's day 2. Day 2. Do I think Levis gave the team an ultimatum, trade or surgery? Timing feels that way. Look, Levis can't force there to be trade interest in him. There was no trade interest in him during the draft. And who's desperate for Will Levis right now? I mean, if they can't trade him, they can't trade him. And I don't think they're interested in trading him. So I think he screwed him with the timing of the surgery. I think he screwed himself by not putting out a statement or having one press conference, talking to one guy, or putting out a tweet saying, look, I tried the rest and rehab method right up till the end, and my shoulder just isn't right. And I can't give the Titans in a backup role what they're going to need from me. And so the best thing for both of us is that I get this thing right and go into 2026 well. And that would have offset at least, or given the other side to the perception that part of this is frustration about his role. But I don't see how he helps himself for 2026. He's going to come off of shoulder surgery. And if he thinks there's going to be more of a trade market for him, no team is going to have seen him throw with this shoulder repair. And so they're going to say, well, first off, there's going to be a whole nother crop of quarterbacks coming into the league in the draft. And they're going to say, I can't trade for this guy without having seen him throw. And he's not like such a big deal that you say, okay, will you have permission to go throw for anybody? I don't think he's helped himself. This Ed says, wonder how the crushing the pocket with bigger edges works against a mobile quarterback who escapes out of the pocket. That is a good question. They face fewer mobile quarterbacks this year, but a guy escaping. But this crushing the pocket, you're counting on what? At least 3 guys having success collectively? I don't know. You're going to count on Femi and Draymond and Simmons or Sweat all to succeed at the same time? I mean, what are the odds of that as opposed to a premier rusher winning his share of snaps? I know they don't have the premier rusher, but given your choice, what do you take? Tall Texan says Landry was bendy, but still wasn't that good. He was just good by Titan standard. Yeah, I'm saying a better bendy guy than Landry. What you want is a premier end. And most premier ends aren't shaped like Draymond Jones, are they? I mean, a few are. Myles Garrett's big, right? But, I'm going back a ways. But Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis were terrorized the AFC South for some Titans fans, lifetimes when they were kids. And they weren't getting there off of size. I'll take a burner. Javon Curse wasn't getting there off of size. He was burning the edge. And I think you need some burning the edge. I think you need one guy who burns the edge. Titans don't have one guy who burns the edge. I mean, Arden Key, I guess, burns the edge, but he's not super fast and he's super streaky, right? He's not going to threaten everybody every week. He'll go on a 3-week run. Hey, Paul, help provide clarity on Levis surgery timing. Strategic planning. If he wanted to be traded, wouldn't he play preseason? He's not getting traded, obviously. He's out for the year. Strategy was, I hope to try to get healthy through rest and rehab. It didn't work. It was bothering him enough for him to say, I'll get healthy for next season, and I'm going to kind of screw these guys by hurting them on their backup plan. I think, quite frankly, the Titans are taking a tact with Allen, who's going to be the backup. Boyle's not going to be around here. And if Boyle's the practice squad quarterback, I think it'd only be temporary till they find somebody younger with some upside. But saying Titans, I think, saying if Ward goes down, we'll lose games and find that defensive end in the top 10, that pass rushing outside linebacker in the top 10 next year. With a higher pick. If Ward's playing, we hope we're winning and on a good track. We may not be winning a lot with him either. But we're not knocking our socks off for a backup. They lost Mason Rudolph back to the Steelers because they didn't match the price he was getting with the Steelers. Now, I think Mason Rudolph was a disaster, and that they wanted Mason Rudolph back was a bad sign to me. You can have a preference for bigger edges for your defense's style. I think saying it's only because the edges available is ignoring scheme preference. That's why I said both. Donnie D. That's fine if you want big edges. Are they allowed to have had sacks in their past? Because go look at Ward and his sack history. 2.1 a season. Terrific. Get yourself big edges. Get yourself big edges who've sacked people. I mean, Ward, in terms of pass pressure, is a better player historically than Carter, who he's replacing. Let's go look at what Draymond Jones, and I like Draymond Jones as a guy, and I think he'll be a good run stopper for them. But what kind of pass rusher is he going to be? What kind of pass rush history does he have? Draymond Jones, if we go look at him, I mean, he's never had, we're going sacks year by year, 3.5, 6.5, 5.5, 6.5, 4.5, 4. You're getting a guy in the last 2 years who had 8.5 sacks combined. You need 8.5 sacks total from him this year, and that wouldn't be really enough from a guy who's going to play a bulk of your defensive end snaps. So I get what you're saying. I'm fine with bigger edges. I just need bigger edges who get to the quarterback. I need players who get to the quarterback. I don't care what shape they are. Take away my bendy, burn the edge thing. Give me players who get to the quarterback. He doesn't. He hasn't. And look, I'm not saying this is just a failed strategy that's bound to fail. Derek Morgan was a nice player who got around the quarterback a lot and didn't finish. Brian Orakpo, once he got here, didn't finish enough, right? I mean, Titans, since Jim Washburn left, who helped guys get to the quarterback, developed Carlos Hall into a double-digit sack guy, got the most out of Tony Brown, helped Javon Curse become who Javon Curse was before he hurt his foot. Jim Washburn, who made a quick appearance to say hello on my last podcast out from Medley's, Titans haven't had the kind of rushers you need to be game changers. Restrepo hadn't done much the last 2 days, and kind of Prochet maybe has been in Restrepo's spot. Number one says Key would be a much better pass rusher if he didn't try to get to the quarterback via Omaha. And you know how much, he swings out wide also. And Vrabel was big on this. They don't want he did not want a pass rusher to ever go behind the quarterback, So that was some bad news. Do I think Snead is a bust? I mean, Snead is tracking towards a bust, but what if Snead, look, they're playing all along, he wasn't going to practice a lot. He was not going to practice a lot. And they wanted to get him ready for Sundays. Now that was really what Rand Carthon said, but Brinker was co-signing it. So if he's ready for the opener in Denver and plays well, and they can get him ready for Sundays, and he plays, I don't know, 13 games. He plays a good 13 games at a plus level. He's not a bust. I mean, if they drafted a cornerback in the third round last year who had a rookie injury and then played 13 or 14 games at a plus level this year, I don't think we'd say that third rounder was awful. Why would we be talking about Bill's blocking sleds? I mean, Bill's blocking sleds were new last year, so we talked about Bill's new blocking sleds. Now they're Bill's blocking sleds that were new last year. They are using some PVC pipes once in a while that I want to ask some offensive linemen about. And I've talked to Skoronski and to Moore, and I forgot to ask both of them. So I think drafting Winston, Ed Henry asks, is drafting Winston meaning more 3 safety looks this year? I think they will have a bunch of packages, different packages with different secondary people in them. And you might not see them all every week. So it could be a 3 safety package that features Winston for Denver that doesn't work against the Rams, or vice versa. And you see it a lot one week and not at all another week. And, same thing with other people. Josh asks, with Levis out for the year, do you look for a vet now to bring in or wait till cuts after preseason? There's no quarterback worth of shit out there right now. And I don't know that they'll be looking for one, because quite frankly, they really overvalue probably this Brandon Allen's experience in the system. And again, I said, I don't think they're uncomfortable with losing games if Ward goes down. Well, saying this, Jay says the Titans have already stated they won't search for another quarterback. Seems Allen was always Callahan's endgame since Rudolph declined. Saying that they won't search for one doesn't mean they won't search for one. I mean, Lorenzo Carter retired, and they said, we might go get another outside linebacker, and they got one in a day. So you can't go hard line by what they say. But I tend to agree with you. So many conspiracies about Levis. I wonder if going on IR was to avoid a cut or a bad trade deal. Well, I don't think there's any bad trade deal for Will Levis. Anywhere he gets traded, he's going to have at least as much, if not more, opportunity to play than he would have had here, because Cam Ward is locked in. And he wasn't going to get cut. Simply was not going to get cut. Yeah. Reggie White, defensive end with size. So we're going to go back a full generation. I mean, you could find more recent guys. Myles Garrett, I think, is pretty big. I'm not saying there aren't. And first off, I'm not looking for defensive end. I'm looking for an outside linebacker. Yeah, there are plenty of them with size who get sacks. My objective, Jabari, is that they've got big guys who don't have a history of getting to the passer. Seems like front office, Ed says, is very conservative in expectations. Far cry from, drops off, Rand Carthon. Yes, I wrote about that early. I had reasonable expectations. A couple other notes I had here. Tajay Spears. This looked good. It's faster somehow, crisper. They've got him in space several times, largely dump offs, outlets, check downs. I find him encouraging. Williams at inside linebacker, Callahan really pumped him up this week. I don't know if that's lip service or meaningful talk of improvement. They've said all along they won't really know about that inside linebacker position until those guys get in pads. So we will see. But right now, and things change, right? 2 days does not mean anything about roster positioning for any position that's got potential movement. So Williams being there primarily the first 2 days doesn't mean anything. You know, we could be out there tomorrow and it could be Otis Reese or Cedric Gray or whatever. But he's off to a big start. Join Kuharsky.com. Exclusive content, insight, wrote different things than everybody else. Certainly will continue to try to do that. James Foster will be around. Mike Herndon will be around. Blake Bedingfield will be around. So you need to be a member. Let me tell you about VIP Play. I got a great deal for you. First off, they are the premier betting experience where everybody plays like a VIP. Sign up for VIP Play, and you get a welcome bonus of $100 when you make a $5 or more bet, and get an extra $50 when you use the code PaulTN. But don't run and do that just yet, because for 22 of you, an offense and a defense worth of people, I've got a extra special offer. If you sign up for a year membership of PaulKuharsky.com, the next 22 people who sign up for a year membership of PaulKuharsky.com get this offer. I will give you a special code for VIP Play, and from that special code, you will get first bet insurance of up to $1,000 at VIP Play. So let me spell it out for you. You get a membership to my site, and you get you sign up for VIP Play. Then you can go and make your first bet at VIP Play with the code I give you, and you can bet up to $1,000, and you're insured. You win that $1,000, and boom, you've got a heck of an account for yourself. You lose it, and you get the $1,000 credit in your account to continue betting with. So up to $1,000. Heck of a deal from VIP Play. Just go to PaulKuharsky.com, sign up for a year's membership. I will see it. I will reach out to you with the code, and you will be set. So great deal for both ends here. PaulKuharsky.com, VIP Play, and you. Check it out. I expect to see you on there soon. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 and over in Tennessee to bet. Do I expect them to be more blitz heavy this year? Sam asks. That's the question that prompted that reply from Brian Callahan about that collective rush. So that was kind of his way of saying, yeah, maybe not, or don't think that that's where we're heading because we've changed personnel. Jordan says, when VY was coming out of college, his sidearm throw was a topic of concern because it seemingly eliminated his height as an advantage. What makes Cam the difference? Well, Cam doesn't have height, so his sidearm throw is not eliminating his height as an advantage. It can be hurtful, certainly, but also sometimes he slots a throw, right between some arms and stuff. He's not been dissuaded from doing it. Most guys are not asked to change their throwing motion when they come out of college. If you draft a guy, you're drafting the way he throws the football. And the Titans drafted the way Cam Ward throws the football. So we'll see if he gets a disproportionate amount of balls batted down and it becomes an issue. We have not seen that be an issue, and hopefully it won't be. But, there's potential certainly for it. Yeah, Tall Texan said VY had Fisher as a coach, the quarterback career killer. That's the difference. Because VY went on to such success with other coaches. Didn't he have Andy Reid as his second coach? Andy Reid, hardly a quarterback killer. And what did Vince Young do for him? So it's nonsense. Guys who left here apparently poisoned by Jeff Fisher, who went on to do nothing elsewhere. Titans contradict themselves from time to time, RP87 said. They just said how Simmons got smaller, but is still as strong. We need strong edges, but we still need the speed. Size shouldn't be a factor. They said that Simmons, who I think did it of his own volition, got down to 287 or whatever he is. And Callahan said, Teron Davenport asked a smart question. He said, you guys are talking about being bigger up front, yet your main guy is down 15 or 20 pounds. Help me square that. And he said, he's still a 300-pound man. So, in the case of Jeffrey Simmons, they don't see it as a contradiction. Restrepo does not, Michael Spain, seem as slow as he was timed, but the people who, just love him and dismiss speed as a concern are, exaggerating on the other side. He's probably, 4.6-ish. Between 4.6, 4.7. Daryl kindly says, happy 30th anniversary of training camp coverage, and what was my most fun that I had covering training camps? Well, the year, I think it was Vince Young's rookie year, the Titans went to Austin Peay in Clarksville. And Tennessean, really, that was still glory days in newspapers. I was there. Wyatt for the Tennessean, David Clymer, David Beauclair was covering for the Murfreesboro paper, which was part of the Gannett chain. And I think even John Glennon was helping us out because it was hockey off season. And we had a blast. We covered that team like a blanket. We played hoop in the gym with some of the equipment guys every night. We had a great deal of fun. That was a really good one. Do I think Burks is a wide receiver too? Absolutely not. I don't think Burks is making the roster. Hi, Spencer. Winston really looked the part. He, you could call it interception. You could call it a fumble recovery. He closed really hard on Josh Wiley and took a ball away from him yesterday in an impressive play. Hat Show Print is not a sponsor. I am just a big fan. Am I saying that the Titans passed on a big offensive lineman with excellent pass rush skills that was available in free agency this year? So you see my point. If not, why are we discussing it? They did not pass on such a person. They were not in range of such a person. They were not in range, really, of any excellent outside linebacker. I'm saying for them to say, our whole design is to go with big outside linebackers is kind of disingenuous, because what they're doing is picking from what's left. And what's left are guys that other teams don't want. So if you look at the field of other guys other teams don't want, what happens to be there are a bunch of big outside linebackers who don't rush the passer well. Hey, guess what? Our strategy is going to be to assemble a group of outside linebackers who are big. And we won't mention the part where they don't rush the passer well. NFLPA question. Do the agents help their clients in collective bargaining, organization, etc.? I don't think the agents particularly care. The agent's job is to get players the best deal and then to make players as comfortable as they can. Seems like they'd have a lot to gain by strengthening the NFLPA. Yeah, it'd be a hell of a job for an agent that represents, 12 guys to be able to influence it. Killing the tag is going to be an impossible thing. Mike Florio says the Browns are going to release Judkins due to domestic violence charges. Thoughts on the Titans having any interest? Yeah, the Titans would love to bring in a guy who just got cut by the other worst team in the league for domestic violence charges. It'd be a real PR win. Since James Williams is so big and fast for a linebacker, why didn't he get a look at outside linebacker? Well, because what he is a coverage inside linebacker because he was a safety. And safeties aren't pass rushers, they're coverage guys. MP2, how much slack does Callahan have this year? 6 wins enough for another season? I don't think it's based on the number of wins. I think it's based on progress that doesn't necessarily translate to wins and losses. How's Cam Ward look? How does Cam Ward do this year? And I think it's about that. Adam asks a tight end pecking order. I think Wiley's way down. That's most of it. DMR probably up. Helm up. Chig, used mostly because they don't have anybody else. Cheap Titans. Who are the Titans being cheap about, Amar? Josh asking about Hendrickson in Cincinnati. The Titans are not giving up what it would take to get Hendrickson in a combination of draft capital. They very much want draft picks. They would like to add draft picks, not give away draft picks. A combination of money and draft picks and the timing of Hendrickson being 30, so he'll be 32, 33 when this group reaches its peak, and he'll be getting to his wall. It just doesn't time up well. He'd be great to have, but it doesn't time up with the Titans very well. How much do I think Mike McCoy is involved in the play calling and the game planning? I mean, he'll be in the meetings, so he'll have a voice and he'll be heard, but I don't think he's taking away anything from anybody else. Oladejo, I talked about earlier, looks really good in the first 2 days. I think it's fair to be excited about him, and hopefully it's not just a blip at the beginning. So we shall see. I'm still curious, Amar, who the Titans are being cheap about. DK, I haven't seen much. He made a couple plays, and I may have missed a couple plays. I am not taking the approach of this training camp of writing down every play. I find you don't go back and refer to it enough to make it worth it. Instead of looking at big picture. And then if Burke Nihill walks by and I have a chance to ask him a couple questions off the record and get some context for something, I'm not gonna pass on opportunities for stuff like that. And so there are plenty of accounts that will live tweet virtually every play and tell you about something. And out of two practices, I can't tell you much about what DK has done or not done, Amar. Just a new approach with Chad and Borgo. They want to build through the draft, less big money on free agents, more playing unproven young players and trying to find a diamond in the rough. Oh, the first pick in the first round is not really a diamond in the rough spot, That's a find a franchise player spot. And it's not a cheap spot. It's the most expensive spot in the draft. It's not a spot you chase, but it's pretty ridiculous to call it cheap. It's not their strategy, actually, to have it. I don't know who you wanted free agency wise. Did you really love the year before? You big into Daniel Brunskill? Have you noticed how well it's gone when the Titans attack a big free agency? I don't know. If what you want is name recognition, you're rooting for the wrong team. Go find the team. When the Titans have won free agency, it hasn't gone well. They were a big winner in free agency last year, and they won 3 games. So I don't think you're paying careful enough attention. Yeah, Adam. I mean, I think it's okay to be encouraged about this draft class, but I think he's saying making as much noise as any I can remember in a while. How much noise are they making? It's 2 practices. Cam, Femi, Winston, Alec, Helm. In 2 practices, they've made noise. You're talking about the outside linebacker approach, Amar says. Which outside linebacker did you want them to go get? They drafted an outside linebacker in the 2nd round after they traded down to gather some picks, which allowed them to get Winston, who looks like he could be a pretty good player. But I'm not sure who you wanted. This is the secret to the league. Players at premier positions, left tackle, pass rusher, corner, quarterback, all of which they had a need at. If you're any good, you don't make it to free agency. And if you make it to free agency, there's something wrong with you. So what the Titans need to do is use high draft picks to get guys at those positions and then lock them up long term with the 2nd and 3rd contract. And this team hasn't been locking anybody up with 2nd and 3rd contracts because they've drafted so poorly. Do I think Vrabel will get the Patriots to the playoffs in the next 3 years? Absolutely. Amar wanted Dre Greenlaw and Robert Spillane. Yeah, those guys would have been the solution. Yeah, all right, Adam, I'll take that. Make noise may not be the correct description, but it's nice they're being talked about in a positive light. Sure. Here's Dwayne. We'll give him a final word. Good, stable, consistent franchises draft well. Free agency should be the sprinkles and the cherry on top of the sundae. Now, it takes a while to get there. Again, Titans have a lot of holes on this roster. Not going to be able to fill them all with the draft next year. I mean, we already know what they need to draft in the 1st round next year. An edge rusher, right? They're going to need a cornerback because this will probably be the end of Snead. Though I will say, and I'll leave you with this, one guy I would keep a close eye on who's back after missing the spring and minicamp. Darrell Baker. I really like Denard Wilson's abilities with corners. They traded out cornerback coaches. We'll see how much of a difference that makes. But I like Darrell Baker. And, he's the guy with Snead out to look for opposite Jarvis Brownlee. Darrell Baker. Look for him and I would expect solid plus play from Darrell Baker when he plays outside corner for the Tennessee Titans this year. So there's got to be optimistic about. I think he'll develop. Check out VIP Play. Great offer there. If you sign up for a year membership at paulkuharsky.com, which you absolutely should. This is the prime time to sign up for that. Then I'll give you a code to sign up at VIP Play, and you got bet insurance on your first bet up to $1,000. That's a hell of a deal. So I'd urge you to do that. Podcasting, I'm not exactly sure the timing. It's going to be a little bit flexible based on the Titans practice schedule. Look forward to seeing some of you out at Nissan Stadium tomorrow. I would imagine tickets are still available, but you have to get them online. So go to their website and check that out. Save yourself a hassle if you want to go out there and check them out tomorrow. There will at least be some red zone work. Say hello. If you see me, I look forward to that. Don't block the box, and be sure, please, to lock your locks. I appreciate you coming. Sorry for the audio difficulties earlier. Take care.